The initial Akida testing is complete. As we know, Brainchip have been progressing towards a pathway of commercialization. We know that AKD1000 production chips have come off the line at Taiwan Semiconductor. The chips were being tested and have now initially been sent out to early access partners, and there's now focus about where those initial commercial agreements will come from and where ASX BRN will head from here. Investors are wondering whether the bus is about to leave the station, and there's a lot of excitement surrounding the Brainchip story at the moment. Today, we'll unpack the recent announcement surrounding Akida testing. There was definitely a number of different interesting nuggets in that announcement about the pathway up ahead. And we'll also talk about this pathway towards commercialization. I know that a lot of individuals try to just distill it down to, there's no commercial agreements, no revenues come through yet. It means that there must not be actually a viable company or opportunity there. But I think looking at a company playing in the deep technology and advanced semiconductor space like Brainchip are, it requires a much broader scope and a much broader vision and analysis when you're thinking about the actual opportunities that a company like ASX BRN has. Today we'll be discussing it all. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. We make daily videos as well, so if you haven't yet, welcome. Make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on so you won't miss any of our daily episodes. So before discussing that commercialization pathway and the opportunity up ahead for Brainchip, let's discuss this recent announcement. As we can see here, Akida testing is now complete. Brainchip, as we know, have developed and have the world's first commercial neuromorphic processor available. It's called Akida, the technology, and the AKD1000 chips are the first set of chips. They have been finalizing testing of these chips, and fascinatingly, they've actually shown better performance than the original engineering samples. The original samples were already top of class as well as first in class as well, so this has only amplified the opportunity that the chips will provide, and of course will attract broader interest for many different companies and potential users of these products moving forward. As we can see here, Brainchip have been testing a production version of the AKD1000 chip with several different neural network applications. As we know about Brainchip's wide, broad use cases, these include areas such as object classification, keyword spotting, and spiking neural networks, but it is much broader than that as well. And we can see that the performance improved on a couple of different dimensions. Firstly, lower power consumption, which really is key, and this was achieved through a better layer and some minor design changes to the design. As we know, Brainchip is an almost universal or unlimited potential use case for their Akida technologies. It doesn't mean that they will be used in every technology process, but it does mean that there is almost an opportunity in most technology processes moving forward, particularly as AI becomes more and more universal and more integrated with our day-to-day lives, that there is the opportunity for Akida to be embedded with many of these different types of processes. The Akida production chips were manufactured by Taiwan Semiconductor on a 28 nanometer process. This is a very commonly used process, and it's only becoming more and more common as dimensions get smaller moving forward, and so this is a great dimension to be working on. The chips are now being integrated onto these boards, and of course we know the initial development kits have been sent out to early access customers, enterprises, potential partners, and of course even a few different interested individuals as well. And so they're able to get their hands on this, they're able to start testing and prototyping potential use cases for Akida, and of course just getting familiar with the technology so that moving forward they could start to think about potential partnership opportunities, potential licensing agreements, and seeing how they could integrate Akida with their products moving forward. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on it all, so drop in a comment below what you think about Brainchip's recent announcement, where you think Brainchip's currently positioned, and where do you think the ASX BRN story heads from here. And a reminder before we dive in, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing we discuss on the channel is financial advice. The stocks we discuss are not buy recommendations. These videos are just here as a general discussion to be that starting spot for you to do your own research from. And so as we can see here from the founder of Brainchip and the interim CEO, Peter van der Meijde, who stated that this is another major milestone for the company. They are transitioning, as we've talked about before, from research and development phase, which of course takes a long time to go from concept through to silicon, into now full production and ultimately commercialization of the AKD1000 chip. Of course, this is not going to be the only iteration of it. They're currently working on the AKD500, potentially the 2000 and the 3000 as well. But this is the first iteration and it is a milestone achievement. Interestingly, this is where the nuggets start coming into play here. As we unpack a bit more of the announcement, he stated they've already seen significant uptake by early access customers, of which we know there is numerous customers potentially there looking at the chips, who are looking to leverage the clear advantages that Akida offers beyond the capabilities of other AI products. Akida is a next generation AI device that offers real-time learning on chip and operates at very low power consumption. Of course, we know that AI processing happens at the moment. There are convolutional neural networks, there is AI processing that happens. A lot of it is done up in the cloud and off device in data centers, but there is no chip available, a neuromorphic processor commercially available that packages it all together. Very low power, processing on device, one-shot learning. To have that all packaged together in this neat Akida form, it truly is revolutionary. And as we can see here, it unlocks a range of different advantages for customers that they're now looking at how they can leverage these and integrate them into their systems. To really get that update about where Brainchip currently is sitting for this state of play, they're currently inviting partners and potential customers to order the development kits. There was an announcement about that a couple of weeks ago, which we provided a video on, which you can check out after this one. And this will enable them to get an idea about how they can bring AI to the edge and how it can provide them with benefits that the incumbent technologies and solutions can't currently provide them with. As you can see here, the solution's high performance, it's small, it's ultra low power, and it enables a wide array of edge capabilities. You only have to think about the potential use cases for this, whether it's a kettle, whether it's a car, whether it's a spaceship, whether it's a drone, whether it's a TV, a phone, all of them have potential use cases for Akida moving forward. As we've said, AI is only going to become more and more integrated with things, and Internet of Things technology is only going to continue to roll out and have a broader adoption moving forward. The Akida system-on-a-chip technology and IP can be used in applications across the board, from smart home, smart health, smart city, and smart transportation, and really just having a look at that breadth of use cases from home automation, remote controls, industrial IoT, robotics, cameras, sensors, unmanned aircraft, autonomous vehicles, medical instruments, and the list goes on. It truly is an almost ubiquitous use case, and this is what's really interesting and fascinating about the Brainchip opportunity, that many of the opportunities for where Akida can be integrated haven't even been conceptualized yet. And so as more and more developers, as more and more researchers, and as more users get their hands on these development kits, it'll be fascinating to see what types of use cases they come up with, and then the potentials for licensing agreements and partnerships and deals that could flow out of those moving forward. And I think further to the significant results surrounding the testing of the AKD1000 chips, there's also been increased communications happening across the board from Brainchip. You might be wondering, why is this happening? Why has there been such a big focus on marketing and communications and really spreading the word about Akida and the Brainchip opportunity? Firstly, there's a few different dimensions actually why this is important, and let's unpack them. I guess firstly and foremost, it is this true transition, as we spoke about before, from research and development, from concept through to commercialization. It helps to validate this transition, and it really does signal it as it's coming out internally from Brainchip and reaching out and sharing that message to the broader world. Obviously, when you're focusing on the R&D phase of your journey, it's less important about what others are thinking about your progression. In fact, there are often some advantages to keeping your progression internal, especially as you're developing a first-in-class type of technology. But it also has the opportunity as well, as you're increasing your communications, to build out the register and institutional support. Brainchip, of course, have got a very passionate retail investor base, Akida Ballista, but along with that as well, as you continue to scale and you continue to expand out, you want to bring in that institutional support. It solidifies your register. Of course, they often have a much longer term time horizon and time frame, and it brings validation to the message as well. We know that institutional funds generally like to take positions as propositions become more and more de-risked. They don't want to jump in on the very early stages. They want to see a de-risking of the opportunity. And so as you start to get more institutional support, it's validation for the mission. And of course, that can snowball. As one institution comes on board or one bigger commercial entity comes on board, then others may start to take a bigger look. And this is another focus for Brainchip. Broader to that as well, this also helps to bring up bigger awareness for the actual Akida technology. For a company like Brainchip, as we've discussed, almost anybody could be a customer. As we know, the world works in an integrated manner, and so if institutions hear about the opportunity or Brainchip, or someone watches a presentation or a video, they could talk to a friend working in a different type of industry who might be like, hey, there is a potential use case for this new technology. Have you thought about that? So not only is it useful on the potential front of institutional investment, but also on the commercial front as well. We've seen an increased focus on this from ASX BRN. They've recently opened up ADRs as well over in the US. And this is only likely to continue to increase as this increases their opportunity to increase the capital access that they can reach, and also the different types of funds who may be aware of what Brainchip are doing. Ultimately, Brainchip and many other companies, not just in the semiconductor space, but playing on the frontier of innovation and next generation technologies, are not only developing a product, but they're in the process of making and educating a market. Now, this takes time. It's not a simple process. And of course, the focus is much broader than just an individual company effort. You need to raise awareness about the opportunity that your product and technology can bring to other different users out there. So this takes time, and this is a range of different reasons why there's been such an increased communication, and of course, why it's only likely to continue moving forward. As we know, Brainchip have assembled a world-class team, from investor relations to sales to marketing. They truly have brought together a team who have done this before, who've got an understanding about how to go to market best and how they can best get the products into the right hands and in front of the right eyes to really scale and at pace. They've assembled this team now, they've laid out the roadmap, and now it's a focus on just continuing to execute and deliver, and it seems like they really do have this defined pathway up ahead, so it's going to be fascinating to see how it moves forward. And so then I guess the question is, what happens now? As we mentioned at the top of the video, commercial agreements are not the only metric of success. I think many people look at it with a very narrow focus. They're like, there's no commercial agreements, there's no revenue, the chips have come off the line, oh, something must be going wrong. Well, no, that's just not the reality. To understand it, you've got to understand the space that Brainchip plays in. It's an intricate and a delicate space. It's very complicated. It's not as if you just get your chips or you have your product developed through the R&D phase, then you start selling it straight away. Of course, you go from licensing through to eventually royalties, but through those types of processes, you have to have your qualification. You've got to actually find a potential use case with customers. So customers have to be interested in it. Then you might qualify. Then you might have some development of some prototypes, see if the use cases are actually there and valid. Then you might do some initial testing. And then if it all works well, you might start to look for some integration, which takes time. Then the actual product itself has to be developed, which happens over years. If you think about Google Home or new autonomous vehicles, your new phones or your laptops, it's not as if these new iterations go from concept through to development of the new iPhone 13 in 2 months' time. It takes time, and all of these new technologies that they're looking to implement must be qualified, tested, prototyped, and then finally rolled out in a few years' time. And so you'll have an upfront licensing fee. This comes through, and of course Brainchip can start accepting some of these now. But over time, once you start to see royalties that continue on to perpetuity and can stack on, that's when you have the potential to start seeing hockey sticking of revenue if they're successful. Of course, it depends on their ability to execute and deliver, but it is a long process. It's not an immediate process, but it can pick up like a snowball over time, and that's what investors are looking for. I think for those who have been watching the ASX BRN story for long enough, most people are familiar with the fact and are pretty comfortable with the fact that it looks like it's the opportunity really of when and not if the commercial agreements will start coming through thick and fast. The discussions are in place, the right team's in place, and of course I've got a top of class technology. So the focus isn't only on commercial agreements, it's really on maintaining and expanding the lead. We know that Akida is the world's first and only currently commercially available neuromorphic processor. It's been stated that there may be a 2 to 3 year lead ahead of the current technologies that are trying to be developed by, say, research chips from, say, Intel or IBM. So the focus is on continuing new technological developments, getting AKD500 out. We know that AKD1000 is very powerful, but really bringing down the cost of it and getting it more commercially available as well. Of course, potential for AKD2000 and 3000 as you get more and more intricately developed chips, patent expansion, and the opportunity that will facilitate for scale as well. We've seen a number of different announcements for patents being unlocked. Of course, this goes some way to de-risking some of the discussions with customers, but also goes some way to de-risking the opportunities to scale moving forward because you've got those protections in place. And then finally, continuing to take orders for the development kits. Of course, this is a form of revenue, but ultimately that's not the main focus. It's about getting these kits in front of the right eyes, into the right hands, getting developers comfortable with the technology that Akida can provide and the opportunities that it can. And then ultimately the opportunities that longer term IP licensing agreements could flow through from that. That's the focus, that's what investors are watching for, and that's why there's so much excitement about where ASX BRN are currently positioned. And so then the road up ahead. As mentioned, of course, we know that commercial agreements could come at any stage. It might not be immediately, it might not be in a week or a day or a month or a year, but at some stage eventually it does look like commercial agreements will start coming through and investors will definitely watch for it. There's no doubt that could give a boost to the share price and bring more eyes onto the story. Of course, we know that a new CEO could be on the horizon. If they come from a big household company, a big name, it has the ability to really attract some more attention to the story as well. But I think first and foremost, we really come back to this previous quote from the Vice President of Global Sales and Marketing, Rob Tolson. He stated recently they're very excited about their customer base. The feedback they've received is entirely positive, and the demand for information about the product is insatiable. It is a very compelling offering. Of course, it's still very early stage, so it's much more inherently speculative and likely to be much more volatile than many of your conventional blue chips. But the opportunity ahead of Brainchip, if they are successful, truly is a compelling one. So investors will be questioning now, is the bus ready to leave the station? It will definitely be a journey worth watching up ahead. Akida Ballista, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. If you're new here, welcome. Make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications as well. We've got plenty of other videos that you can check out after this one. Thank you for joining us. Keen to hear your thoughts, so drop in a comment below. For now, stay well and happy investing.